Hey all Tigers fans, you must be up and about. What a win, hey? And Dusty Martin, another Norm Smith, the first player in history to win the Norm Smith medal 3 times. He, like so many champion athletes, just have this ability to perform at the top of their game when the heat is on. I was reading an article written by a sports psychologist who was sharing some fascinating insights about what the world's top athletes have in common. He talked about how they've obviously mastered their craft, but how they've also mastered their mindsets, which is ultimately what sets them apart. He talked about the mindset being the determining factor in whether or not an athlete will maximize their talent. And one of the mindsets that this sports psychologist talked about these superstar athletes having in common was that they had a mindset that said they were not competing to win approval or worth. And he said that it's this mindset that enables these athletes just to get in the zone. You see, when you're not concerned about gaining approval, then that enables you to think differently. Like these athletes are able to have an absence of all of these thoughts that center around worth and value. And the sports psychologist said that it's the absence of this cognitive process that is the real advantage. The reason being is that when you're not playing for your worth, your mind doesn't dwell in past failures and it doesn't go forward into the future. Instead, your mind stays present. The athlete's mind gets really quiet and their unconscious mind is then able to function quicker than their conscious mind. And thus, they're able to do freaky things on the field under enormous pressure. Like, think about it practically. If you had 2 athletes, one goes into the game playing for their worth, for their significance, and the other goes into the game knowing that their worth, value, and significance is already secure. How do both players perform? Fundamentally different, and here is why. For the player, playing for their worth, for them, their value is attached to their performance. And so if they don't perform, well, that will crush them. So they come into the game tight, their mind is just so occupied with all of these thoughts of worth, so their reaction times are down and they fumble. And the other player, whose worth is secure regardless of how they perform, they come into the game loose and free with a quiet mind, and thus they're responsive. They see the game like it's in slow motion, and so they crush it. And so a question that I've been asking myself a lot lately is, which player am I? How do I approach the arena of life? You see, the second athlete says, this game is not a determining factor on my value because my value is already set, it's already secure. The Apostle Paul, he had the mindset of an elite athlete. In Colossians 1 verses 3-6, he talks about how the good news is news about grace, a grace that is all about putting people back together with God through faith in Christ, which means God is for us. We already have God's undeserved favor. Our worth, our value, it's already secure. It's already set regardless of results. And Paul is telling us that we have to boot off this grace, this truth every day so we can play the game of life from value and worth instead of for it. This is the life that we're called to enter into, a life in which we walk free of the shackles of working for our worth, a life in which we find our identity, approval, applause, and worth in Him and His finished work. I don't know about you, but this is how I want to play the game of life. Let's live from worth. Have a rad one, legends. God bless.